You know, I'm going to give you a history lesson.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country.
Start laughing! And when I do, start.
Also, y'all did some nasty ass jokes on my ass too.
Funny jokes and unfunny jokes come out of the same birth.
You f***ing guys are unbelievable.
Why are you laughing?
Evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Why Are You Laughing, a history of comedy podcast. And today, I am pleased to introduce to you Bo Burnham's Inside, one of my favorite comedy specials of all time. I think it's fair to call it a comedy special. That's probably the best name for it. It's definitely not a stand-up special, certainly in the traditional sense. But I do think it's a true masterpiece and one of my favorite pieces of content ever. Like, it just clicks with me. I think kind of if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't, sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm the personality type that this really resonated with. And I think if you're like me, you're obsessed with it, or you're like, yeah, there are a couple funny things in there. The rest of it I didn't really give a shit about. But like, I think if it hit you the right way, then you really love it.
That was more the camp I fell in. I was like, yeah, there's parts.
Well, it's good to have your perspective here then too, because there's a couple things I want to preface this episode with. One being that if you haven't seen the special yet, I think sometimes that works. Like, you probably could have watched the Daniel Tosh People Pleaser episode and still been like, hey, those are some funny jokes. But yeah. I don't think this works that way. So if you want to watch this episode, if you've made it this far in, we already got your view anyways. It doesn't matter. But I would say go to Netflix, watch Inside, and then maybe come back and see our thoughts if that interests you. Because I don't like the context of it just doesn't make sense. Also, with Netflix, if you're listening out there, Netflix, don't implode the episode. If you got to demonetize, it's fine. But for the love of God, keep it up. Because that's the other thing, is we're pretty much only playing the songs, even though I think there's some good, like, I guess you would call them sketches from the special. But we're mostly playing the songs because that's kind of what you're allowed to play on YouTube, I think. So hopefully our overlords are kind to us on this one, but we shall see. And if it causes members not to get it for a couple extra days, we do apologize. But typically, you always get episodes early if you're a member. So if you want to become a member on Patreon or YouTube, get early access to episodes as well as bonus content, then please subscribe on Patreon or YouTube. Join. It's a cup of coffee, baby. It's $5 a month. So come on board there, or just support the show for free. We appreciate that as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening, then maybe go to YouTube and throw us a subscription anyways. But you can also just leave us a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. And the easiest way to find those links, every single one of them, is blindmike.net. We have merch up there as well if you want to check that out. So go to blindmike.net. We appreciate your support, gang. So yeah, there are also, by the way, a couple of what I would say are very valid criticisms of this special that I have heard from a couple comedians, and we'll get into those. If I forget, Craig, maybe remind me at the end, just because I do think it plays into the whole thing. I'm sure we'll mention them as it comes up in different points. But there are definitely a couple things you could take umbrage with. But Bo Burnham took 5 years off. He was getting anxiety and panic attacks on stage, which we'll talk about later. I didn't realize that. He kind of addresses it, and you'll hear a little bit of that here. He addresses it as something kind of all of his fans knew. Maybe if you're someone that was keeping up with his tour schedule or something, then you would be more fixated on it, like, oh, where the hell's he been? But I just knew he hadn't put out a special in a few years, and nothing really occurred to me. But he was legitimately getting like panic attacks on stage to where he couldn't perform. And to go even further back, Bo Burnham's a guy who became he's like the greatest YouTube success story, because he was in the very early days of YouTube. He was 16, just making songs, and has become a legitimate comedian, and what I think is like one of the best comedic voices of his generation. Again, not a traditional stand-up, but definitely a incredible comedic voice in my opinion. So Given that he's away for 5 years, this is how Inside begins.
If you'd have told me a year ago that I'd be locked inside of my home, I would have told you a year ago. Interesting, now leave me alone. Sorry that I look like a mess. I booked a haircut, but it got rescheduled. Robert's been a little depressed, no. And so today I'm gonna try just getting up, sitting down, going back to work. Might not help, but still it couldn't hurt. I'm sitting down, writing jokes, singing silly songs. I'm sorry I was gone, but look, I made you some content. Daddy made you your favorite open wide. Here comes the content. It's a beautiful day to stay inside.
So he recorded this entirely in his home during the pandemic. He basically started doing it in the summer of 2020. It was released in June of 2021. So he basically took a year working on this, and you kind of see that progress throughout the time, throughout his time filming the special, where, you know, his beard gets longer, the special gets darker as it goes along, I would say. But there are people, I think probably like Craig, that think of this as just like kind of like a very serious special, where a lot of the songs, you know, take on political issues or depression, things like that. I don't see it that way. I think he does a very good job of mixing in comedy. You guys sound off in the comments if you agree or disagree with me.
I thought it had its funny parts, but I thought it was more of an interesting look at him kind of losing his mind.
That's definitely true. But I do think throughout it, with a couple of exceptions, meaning a couple of song exceptions.
Yeah, for sure.
I think even in those, he still has jokes. I would say even in like the serious songs, he still peppers in jokes. So I think that's kind of a misconception that people have, that this was some dark, ominous thing. Although I will say, if you look at his other specials, then it's maybe one song like that have the tone of this entire special. Like our intro is Art is Dead, which is kind of the vibe of the entire Inside special. Whereas in his earlier stuff, he was much sillier, which we'll address later.
But here we have Healing the World.
Yeah, so this is where he kind of lays out what the premise of this is. And I should also acknowledge, again, I told you guys, if you haven't seen it, then buzz off. But if you stuck around, then there are a lot of, you know, talking bits within this that kind of set the things up a little better, maybe even than I'm doing. But we just can't play them, unfortunately. So this song, I think, kind of indicates what the tone of the special is going to be.
The people rising in the streets, the war, the drought. The more I look, the more I see nothing to joke about. Is comedy over? Should I leave you alone? Cause really, who's gonna go for joking at a time like this? Should I be joking at a time like this? I wanna help to leave this world better than I found it. And I fear that comedy won't help, and the fear is not unfounded. Should I stop trying to be funny? Should I give away my money?
So that's the whole bit, and not the whole bit, but the tone of most of this special is that he's kind of conflicted whether or not he should be joking about the things going on in the world because he's taking them very seriously. Now, to me, I think a lot of people would look at that and say, like, fuck off. Like, you're a comedian. You're supposed to be, that's your job. Some people need a break from that stuff. Well, I would agree with that take, but also I would say that's exactly what Bo Burnham is doing, is he's kind of revealing his inner struggle with some of this stuff, like, can I joke about it? But because we're watching it on Netflix, obviously the ultimate answer is yes. That's what a lot of people forget. Like, when you put out content like this, saying like, "Oh, can I joke about this stuff?" Well, he's doing it.
Right.
Now the joke is typically on him. Like later in the song, the joke is basically like, what we need is a white guy like him explaining everything that's wrong with the world. So he just takes that angle, and that's one thing I see a lot of similarities to someone that may not come directly to mind, because I don't think if you think of this person, you think a musical comedian necessarily, but I see a ton of similarities to George Carlin, where clearly he was influenced by a lot of Carlin's politics. And something that's I think important to remember when you look at someone like Bo Burnham is now you'll see it's very interesting if you look at like Twitter, because both sides will use George Carlin
Right.
as a champion of theirs.
Mhm.
Where the right will be like, look at what he said about wokeness and the pussification of America. Georgie, you nailed it.
Mhm.
And the left will be like, look at what he said about, gun control or gay marriage or any of these issues. And so they'll both be celebrating George Carlin, but what the right forgets is that Carlin probably would have been against virtually everything they stand for, more or less.
Mhm.
And what the left forgets is that George Carlin literally did a bit where he lists every slur that he can think of. Like he would use the N-word and the F-slur and all that stuff because he was a true champion of free speech. So that's what both sides forget about a guy like George Carlin, is they would equally crucify him were he alive today. So I think because of Bo's very clearly liberal politics in this, I think a lot of people would go into it and be like, oh, what a woke pussy bitch, But also, like, in the Inside Out, first of all, I don't think could be boxed in like that, because in the Inside Outtakes, a special that we will touch on here, he has a song about not wanting to vote for Joe Biden. So he's not just some mindless liberal necessarily. But also, I think he does a good job at presenting his point in the similar way to Carlin. He presents his point, he makes it funny, but also similar to Chappelle also, where he not just makes it funny, but also makes it interesting. Where even at the parts you're not laughing at, you're like, I'm curious to hear what this guy thinks. I want to hear more, whether it's the song or what he's talking about. Like with Chappelle, I said this all the time. I think he's gotten less funny over the years.
Yep.
But he certainly hasn't gotten less interesting.
Correct.
And I shouldn't say he hasn't gotten less funny. He's just focused on certain things more. You can
He's not
guess what I'm talking about.
He's not focused on like the volume of punchlines, rather than
The volume of punchlines and silliness.
right.
Like we don't get a lot of Dave, I'm gonna race him anymore,
Right.
So but he's never gotten less interesting. Like even the 25-30 minute thing he put out about George Floyd, where I got a little confused with some of the numbers. He's like, Kobe Bryant's jersey number is the same as whatever. Like, it was a little odd, but it was very interesting to listen to him talk. And I think Bo Burnham has that quality about him, where whether you agree or disagree with him, he's captivating to listen to because he's making good points.
Yeah, that was one I couldn't bring myself to watch from Chappelle.
I didn't mind it, but to call it a comedy special is ridiculous.
It was crazy. I knew what the topic was, and I was like, I just don't want to think of him one way or another. I just want to.
I was born on the 19th. Doesn't anyone understand? It's like, what are you talking about, Dave?
It's like I saw that movie with Jim Carrey, and I thought it stunk, so I didn't want to see him recreate it.
Yeah.
But next we have FaceTime with my mom.
Okay, so this is, in my opinion, probably like his worst song on the album, which is, a high bar, I think, still. But it is also like he gets into silliness here. So I wanted to kind of show that it's not all melodramatics.
I call, she answers, and her hair is wet. I say, did you just shower? She says, how'd you guess? I say, your hair is wet. She says, oh yeah. I tell my boys I need some space, yeah. I'm a FaceTime with my mom tonight. She'll hold her iPhone 5 no further than 6 inches from her face, yeah. I'm a FaceTime with my mom tonight. She says, oh, look who's here. Say hi to Dad. Hi to Dad. He says, says, how you doing? But I say I'm not so bad, and that's the deepest talk we've ever had. Watching as she looks for her glasses, I'm a FaceTime with my mom tonight. She'll tell me all about the season 6 finale of The Blacklist. I'm a FaceTime with my mom tonight.
So, like, to me, that is him sticking with, like, that's essentially 16-year-old Bo Burnham through a 30-year-old filter.
I got
Like,
the vibe of that the whole time. Like he was kind of going back to his roots, doing it himself in his house. Like I said, I didn't like crack up watching this, but I watched the whole thing. I thought it was very interesting watching the whole process, kind of.
Yeah, and like this song is just him talking about a topic he thinks would be funny, similar to when he was 16, he would sing, you know, my whole family thinks I'm gay, or whatever, whatever the topic might be. So like that's him kind of sticking to his roots, and you're right, there's a little bit of him getting back to that, but also him kind of critiquing it, which I think he does in a very interesting way. And there's some aspects of that, again, I disagree with, and some that I do agree with. And that to me is sort of the brilliance of it, and what is lost a lot in comedy. That, first of all, like Bo Burnham would hate me, and he'd really hate Craig for the atrocities that he's committed. Like, like I don't think Bo Burnham would agree with anything I think virtually. But to me, that's what makes him great at what he does, is because there's so much now in comedy of, well, if you don't agree with my stance, my comedy isn't for you. Whereas what it used to be, and what it always was for so many years, was if you don't agree with me, I'm still going to make you hopefully think, but at the very least make you laugh, you know?
Right.
At least from political comics or people with some kind of point of view like that.
That's kind of how I look at when Chappelle touches that stuff. He'll kind of make fun of all of it, but like with the political stuff, a lot of times that's like a live wire for comics. Like don't do it. But like whatever side he's making, he makes everybody laugh, and that's kind of how he approaches the same thing.
I mean, Louis C.K. I'm sure has a lot of right wing fans, particularly now. But I think he's got a lot of people that voted for Trump going to his shows. Louis C.K. sent out an email talking about how you should vote for Hillary Clinton because she's a great mother. So it's like I think the greats have both. Like Norm was, if you hear him talk, clearly probably leaned Republican.
Definitely.
But like, I don't think anyone really thinks of him that way, you know?
Nope.
So I think Bo Burnham has that quality, certainly.
Yep. And next we have How the World Works.
So this is one of my favorites. And like for time purposes, this is a perfect example of where you got to watch the whole thing for it to fully make sense. But basically, Bo Burnham's kind of presenting like a children's show, like a Sesame Street type thing. And he sings a song about how the world works, from the biggest elephant to the littlest fly. And then the second verse, he's joined by his friend Sacco, where we pick up here.
Look who stopped by to say hello. It's Sacco. Hey! Where you been, Sacco? I've been where I always am when you're not wearing me on your hand. In a frightening liminal space between states of being. Not quite dead, not quite alive. It's similar to a constant state of sleep paralysis. Sacco, we were just talking about the world and how it works.
Boy, that sounds complicated.
Do you have anything you'd want to teach us about the world?
I wouldn't say anything that you probably haven't already said yourself.
I don't know about that, Sacco. How about you give it a try?
All right. The simple narrative taught in every history class is demonstrably false and pedagogically classist. Don't you know the world is built with blood and genocide and exploitation? The global network of capital essentially functions to separate the worker from the means of production, and the FBI killed Martin Luther King. Private property apparently theft, and neoliberal fascists are destroying the left, and every politician, every cop on the street protects the interests of the pedophilic corporate elite. That is how the world works. Really? That is how the world works. Genocide the natives, say you got to it first. That's how.
So So, first of all, anyone that says this special is too dark, the guy's singing to a fucking sock. So,
Right.
you know, he does have a little fun with it. But like very funny just to set it up as to get that message across through a children's the vehicle of a children's show, and set it up by saying, well, I probably wouldn't say anything you already haven't said yourself. Go into that rant.
Very funny.
But that's again like the point of that they get into after is basically that Bo Burnham, the real Bo Burnham in this, is just a rich white guy that's like, well, Sacco, what can I do to help? And he's like, oh, fuck, I don't know if I can read a book. Figure it out. It's not up to me to tell you how to help. And that's the message that he's sending, but he does it in a very funny way. And like, there's a video that I've seen on YouTube that breaks down like everything that Sacco said is like radical Marxist views. So clearly it's controversial, but he's saying like, hey, he's going with the kind of either extreme angle. That's how I interpret it anyways.
His facial expressions during that, when the sock quote was singing, was what made it extra funny. Like when he's
really?
Like, yeah, exactly. Oh, you're right.
He's great. I'm also surprised he's not. I mean, maybe he just doesn't want to do it, but like I think he's a very good actor too. Like, I'm sure we'll do a the Life of Bo Burnham episode at some point. But like Zach Stone is going to be famous. Should not have been on MTV because I think that doomed it. Like if that was on HBO or something, I think that would have been a big hit.
Yeah. Next we have, I think probably the most popular song that came out of this was the White Girl's Instagram.
Oh, interesting. I have a different nominee for most popular song, but I do see this a lot on like TikTok and stuff. Instagram. But this is again back to some comedy here.
Latte foam art, tiny pumpkins, fuzzy comfy socks, coffee table made out of driftwood, a bobblehead of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a needlepoint of a fox, some random quote from Lord of the Rings, incorrectly attributed to Martin Luther King. Is this heaven? Or am I looking at a white woman? A white woman's Instagram.
So again, a very funny one, but also like he's shitting on white women, like basic bitches is who he's making fun of.
Correct.
But again, where Bo Burnham's brilliant is there's a verse in the song where he's essentially talks about this woman that he's describing. Like, let's say it's just based on one white woman. This woman that he's describing is going through like the loss of one of her parents and wishing she was still there. And so it gives you like, you have a couple verses to laugh at this dumb bitch. And then you kind of realize like, oh, okay, that's true. Everyone does go through shit. So it makes you, to me, it makes you feel on a level that a lot of comedy doesn't. I'm sure that's gay of me to say. Sound off in the comments if you think I'm gay. But because I'm sure we'll get plenty of that. But it does, like, I think that's why a lot of his stuff resonates with people so much, because he has such a great understanding. I never saw the movie 8th Grade that Bo Burnham directed, and I believe also wrote. But the one thing I heard of, the one review I heard of it, was basically that you can't fathom that an adult man wrote the film because it seems so in touch with what an 8th grade girl would have been going through. Like I think his ability to tap into human emotion is incredible. I tried to think of someone, we always go with influences. I don't know anyone that's better at Bo Burnham than that's been in comedy. I mean, TV writing is probably the angle you'd have to go with more to find someone that's as in tune with people's emotions and kind of making you feel. Because I don't think there are stand-ups that really do that even.
Correct. But he also, on top of the songs, kind of get into some sketches, and this is reaction video.
Yeah, I gotta say, this feels like a bit of this is where I say Bo Burnham wouldn't like anything about me. It's a little bit about what we do. And again, I do it for a living, and yet he makes very valid points, skewering people like me. But there's a 33-minute song that precedes this that you will hear within the clip. That could have been its own song. It's called Unpaid Intern. And like that on its own, if he wrote it in full, could have been something very funny, but he used it for the purpose of this sketch.
Hey everybody, I thought I'd do a reaction video to the song that you just saw me perform. Thought that might be fun. So I got my laptop all set up, song ready to go, and let's go. Who needs a coffee? Cause I'm doing a run. I'm writing down the order. I like this song. So the idea of this song was basically that there are so many songs in the past about working class jobs, but not a lot about the labor exploitation of the modern world. So that was the idea here. My beard is a little shorter in this video because I filmed it a couple weeks ago. I think it holds up. The song, not the beard. And then you cut. Hey everybody. I think it's funny to cut right on. I thought I'd do a reaction video to the song that you just saw me perform. Thought that might be fun. What? So I got my... Because this video played after that, right? So, and now, right. Okay, so I'll keep reacting. So this is me reacting to the song. The song was basically that what I'm doing is I'm explaining what the song means, about working class jobs, but not what it's about. I'm being a little pretentious. It's an instinct I have where I need everything that I write to have some deeper meaning or something. But it's a stupid song, and it doesn't really mean anything. And it's pretty unlikable that I feel this need, this desperate need to be seen as intelligent. And the video's ending here. Hey everybody, see, it's funny to cut right on. Look, I'm very confused. See, I'm very, very confused because I'm staring at myself. I don't know what I'm looking at, and I'm starting to catch up. Now I'm realizing what's going on, and yeah, now I'm deciding to react to the reaction.
First of all, a little hurtful, but also proves my point, where like he's completely making fun of what we're doing right now.
Yes,
and yet I'm watching it and enjoying it. Like I get what he's saying entirely. Where we all make these reaction videos, and eventually content will just be this endless loop of shit where we're all just talking about each other, talking about each other, talking about each other.
Ackroyd needs to put this in one of those little squares.
Yeah, have us.
That could be the promo for this episode.
Right. So like, but like, that's the thing about Bo's. I might have counters to that, and that would be that like people enjoy this content, and you kind of want to find groups of people that understand the things that you like to make you feel less crazy. It's kind of a community that you build around these reaction videos. But ultimately, what he's saying is correct. Now, again, what Bo Burnham does very well is he starts off, like, it's all commentary on himself also, where he starts off kind of very, seriously breaking it down. And then by the end of it, you hear him just self-loathing, where he's like, I don't know why I have to be so pretentious and come off as smart. It's really just horse shit. Like that's also the funny thing about it is that you get past a couple layers to what's real, and it's just self-loathing that I think a lot of people identify with him on.
This song is stupid. I just feel the need to be seen.
Yeah, exactly. Which again is a good diagnosis, maybe of him, but also the people he's commenting on, like us.
Next we have Problematic.
It'd be great, by the way, if I played that video with no iron and was just like, good one, right, guys? We had no idea that it was about what we're doing. Actually,
the way he filmed it, the lighting was all terrible.
Yes. And to be clear, when I say what we're doing, I don't mean me specifically. I don't think it was an attack on me.
It was an attack on you from 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. So Problematic is it's interesting because I think it's very well done, but it also might be an example of me reading too much into something. I often wonder about that, but let's hear it. It's a song. Bo Burnham's gotten shit over the years, and we even addressed it on Who Are These Socials early on, probably like a year ago or something, where there were people online, like still, even long after this special came out, like, hey, Bo Burnham should be canceled because he said these words in the past and made these jokes. So clearly Bo Burnham was seeing stuff like that in the 5 years that he was off. I would imagine it's mostly around, like, he would use the F word a lot. The F slur, as the kids call it, I guess. Like, he would use that word a lot on stage. Now, it was always in a self-deprecating manner, or making fun of the type of people that would say that, basically. So to me, that's fine, but to a lot of people it isn't, obviously. I think that's mostly what it's addressing, but he also does have a lot of early content that involves race, like, racial jokes and things like that, gender, sexuality. So, he's dealt with his share of backlash over the years, as any good comedian will, and this song is him addressing that.
Grew up as your usual suburbanite, a tiny town in Massachusetts, overwhelmingly white. I went to church on Sundays in a suit and a tie, and spent my free time watching Family Guy. I started doing comedy when I was just a sheltered kid. I wrote offensive shit, and I said it. Father, please forgive me, for I did not realize what I did, or that I lived to regret it. Times are changing and I'm getting old. Are you gonna hold me accountable? My bed is empty and I'm getting cold. Isn't anybody gonna hold me accountable? I'm problematic. It's a problem. When I was 17 on Halloween, I dressed up as Aladdin. It's a problem. I did not darken my skin, but still it feels weird in hindsight. I want to show you how I'm growing as a person, but first I feel I must address the lyrics from the previous verse. I tried to hide behind my childhood, and that's not okay. My actions are my own, I won't explain them away. I've done a lot of self-reflecting since I started singing this song. I was totally wrong when I said it. Father, please forgive me, for I did not realize what I did, or that I lived to regret it. Times.
So, to me, yes, he's apologizing for things that he himself was embarrassed by. I don't think he's apologizing, because the backlash that he got never made news.
Right.
I don't remember seeing headlines like Bo Burnham canceled or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it was more he looked back, heard him saying the F word over and over again, making gay jokes, making race jokes. Like, the song New Math is all crude jokes you would see on Reddit. Not to say a lot of it's not really smart and funny for a 17-year-old to come up with, but basically what Bo Burnham's going through that you hear in this song is that he made a lot of jokes that a lot of open micers would make. The flaw that Bo Burnham had in his life was that his were just much better than the typical open micers, and he got really, really successful. So I'm talking about, like, maturity-wise. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I think he's funnier than people at an open mic. But maturity-wise, he's making jokes that a 16, 17-year-old would make when he was 16 or 17. So I think he's genuinely apologizing for that. And I think that because I've also heard him do it in interviews before this special came out, like, verbally, kind of talk on it and say similar things there, where he's like, if you pulled up one of my songs from when I was 16 right now, I'd be horrified.
Right.
But also, like, I was 16. So you'll hear kind of one of those apologies in something that I'm glad he cut out. So like I said, the inside outtakes are available, I think, exclusively on YouTube. I don't know if Netflix made it available on there as well. But I first saw it pop up on YouTube in its entirety, and it's all the, obviously, outtakes that didn't make the final cut of the special. And there's some really good stuff in there. And so, go watch. If you enjoyed this special and you haven't seen that yet, definitely go watch it. But one thing I'm glad he cut out was this apology, because I kind of think it takes away from the song. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say on the song first was the point I was making was, yes, it is definitely an apology, but also the second verse that you hear there, I do think the commentary is also, but relax with some of the shit. Because, like, I've self-reflected since I started singing this song, is basically like, you guys are changing all the time. I can't keep up with that shit. You know what I mean? Like, give me some fucking leeway to grow with you, you know?
Right.
So that's the part that I said maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's how I always took it, is like, yes, you guys have a point, but don't fucking murder people over it, you know? Take a breather and relax, because you kind of have to give people time to change on their own.
Here's the apology outtakes.
Yes.
When I was 16 years old, I started posting videos on YouTube. And this was 2006, and YouTube was very new at the time. And I posted videos of me performing songs that I thought were funny, that I had written. And I performed these songs in my childhood bedroom, which was my bedroom at the time because I was a child. And in hindsight, it just seems absolutely insane and invasive and strange. But it didn't feel like that at the time. It felt exciting. And soon after I posted my first couple of videos, they went viral. Basically, within a year of that, I started...
real quick, just for the audio listeners, what you're hearing is some of his original songs from when he was a kid playing in the background, basically.
Professionally. And I continued doing that until the age of 25, when I stopped. But yeah, so since I started so young, basically every shitty joke, every sort of misstep is there's a lot of material that I'm just really embarrassed by and makes me cringe for a lot of reasons. And just edgy, stupid. Yeah, it doesn't hold up, and I don't know. I often wish that I could just, start over and without all the. But I also know that if I didn't have that early material, I wouldn't be where I am today, or where I was before I locked myself in this room and lost my mind.
I think he knew how serious this was because he had like fake ads popping up, like a YouTube video on the bottom, just like that one just before the end there just popped up. It's him, and it says, "Oh my god, did I just fuck a Minecraft pineapple?" Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean too. Is like, he did, as dark as he would get at times, he did also keep it very light, or did his best to keep it light as well.
Right.
But so two things there. The reason I said I'm glad he cut that out is because I think it spoon feeds the audience more than necessary.
Or the critics,
like I said,
even.
I think everyone got the song problematic, and if you didn't, if you're like, oh yay, he's apologizing, that's also fine. Like, whatever you interpreted from it, terrific. But also, the reason I'm glad he posted it in the outtakes is that you have it there because it's him saying, like, I'm embarrassed. You guys didn't like get me to do this. I'm embarrassed by this, and I cringe at it. But also, I know you wouldn't be watching this right now if I didn't do that stuff. So it's a guy who probably almost agrees, like, with parts of cancel culture. You know what I mean? Like, a guy who's on that a lot of people would consider on the wrong side of that argument, still saying, hey, like, I just had the misfortune of open micing publicly, basically. Like, I was doing open mics that I posted to YouTube. So if you see a kid on Twitter when he was 15 posted a rap lyric, but now you like think what he does is very respectful, maybe don't, or respectable, I should say. Maybe don't, ruin his life for that,
Right.
That's, again, what I took from it. So I'm glad he posted the full thing in the outtakes, but I'm also glad he didn't post it in the original special, just because I don't think it's necessary. Then it's too much of like, I apologize, guys, I'm sorry,
And it's a big tone change.
Again, I think if you watch the whole thing, it's not really. He kind of goes back and forth with that.
Well,
as you'll see.
It's so long and so slow though. Like it's almost like, all right, let's skip this.
Well, that's the thing with you where it doesn't connect with you necessarily. I love that shit about it. I love even the melodramatics of it because to me it taps in. But there is one of the criticisms I wanted to mention is Brendan Sagalow. They were talking about this on Jim and Sam years ago, and comedian Brendan Sagalow was on, and they had played a couple songs and basically talked about what a genius Bo Burnham is. And Brendan Sagalow goes, yeah, he's definitely a genius, and obviously this was great and everything. He goes, but I gotta say, there are parts of it where I'm like, hey man, just go outside. Like the whole thing is he's trapped inside because of the pandemic and everything. It's like just fucking go outside, you know? You don't have to be that depressed. But I think the metaphor of inside also goes back to I don't just think it, he references it a few times, like being a kid who was trapped in his room, like a lonely kid, basically. And again, that's the part that resonates with me. Like I think it was more than just COVID. I think inside was kind of a metaphor for just depression in general or feeling alone, you know?
Yeah, like inside your own mind.
Yes, exactly.
Not necessarily like an actual dwelling.
Right, yeah.
Next,
that's why Brendan Sagalow and Bo Burnham each have their own careers, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Next we got Rogan Crew.
Oh, so this is another, I almost forgot about this. This is another clip from, again, kind of attacking me, I feel like. Or at least what I used to do a lot on the Blind Mike Project.
Yeah.
But this is a very funny clip. Like I said, we only have 2 from the outtakes. If you like this, you should definitely go check it out. But I thought this was a very funny commentary on, a lot of people say Rogan. Like a lot of people have interpreted, there's a bunch of like hidden messages that Bo puts in the special, like, you know, he'll turn over his easel and never address it, but there's like little messages on it and stuff like that. A lot of people say he's attacking specifically Rogan. I would say more so the spawns of Rogan. And not just the people he has on his show, but people trying to be Rogan, basically. That's how I take it. But it might also be Rogan specifically.
Yeah, and for the people just listening, on the beginning of this, it says Bo Burnham's Inside the Podcast with Bo Burnham and Bo Burnham, and underneath it says sponsored by Man Stuff, products made for men by men with men in mind because of men in general.
Okay, yeah. So you get the idea.
What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Bo Burnham, joined in studio, as always, by my co-host, Bo Burnham. What up, what up, what up? And we are 2 comedians who are talking shit, no filter, not giving a fuck what anybody thinks. Not a fuck. And, not apologizing for it. So let's get into it and might say some crazy shit. Yeah, let's do it. PC culture, man. It's fucking exhausting, right, bro. It's fucking out of control. Exhausting. It's just, our culture has been taken over by a radical group of SJW feminist freaks. Who hate comedians, they hate us. Who are anti-comedy and anti-joke. Totally. And it's gotten to the point where you can't say anything. No, literally, 100% say anything. Literally. I will try to say something right now. Yeah. Watch. Yeah, and he is trying. And it's unbelievable because we've fallen so far from the heyday of comedy. So depressing, dude. When, you know, Tony the Pancake was headlining the Comedy Store. Or Salami Williams on a Tuesday night. They would they just fucking murder.
This is a Rogan.
It might be Rogan. I'm sorry.
This is 1,000% a Rogan attack.
Yeah, it might be a Rogan.
The Comedy Store crushing. That's Rogan.
Okay, my bad.
I'm gonna rewind it just a little so we can drink that in again.
Cake was headlining the Comedy Store. Salami Williams on a Tuesday night. They would they just fucking murder. Just fucking that, absolute, just crushing, dude. You know, and it sucks because these people they don't understand comedy. Of course not. We're joking. It is not that serious, guys. Okay, it's not that serious. Joking around. And also, we as comedians are philosophers. Yes, all right, Lenny Bruce. we hold a mirror. History changing.
Pops up on the screen, says this episode is sponsored by Man Stuff's Dick Spray. Does your junk go skunk? Use one of Man Stuff's parented spray on dick deodorants. Use promo code Inside Podcast.
I don't think I'd watched it fully in a while. That's pretty clearly Rogan. I'm sorry, everyone.
cultural figures, and you need to recognize that. All right, comedy is an art form.
Yeah, of course it is. We're artists.
It's an art form, and it's important because it's one of the only art forms that is not gay. No, no, we can't say that. But gay. But not now. They're going to come after us, right? We're going to get canceled for saying this.
You homophobes.
We're not being homophobic.
Okay, no, it's
when we say that.
It's gay is just.
If there was another word that meant gay that wasn't gay, we'd use that.
We would.
But there
Again, it's something like he and I probably have different opinions on this point, but like that's just very funny because there's truth in what he's saying, where it's particularly in the aspect of it's like one guy making these points that have been made over and over again, and the other guy going, "Oh, you're so exactly, yep, absolutely." Like there's an element of that, and it's probably why I stopped talking about it a lot, and I think a lot of people have, is because the point has been made, you know? Like at this point, we understand it. And it got corny, I think, when it became such a, like Clay Travis is doing it. You know what I mean? Like when it becomes a thing that's on AM radio every day, then you've officially become corny, and it's like, okay, we get the point, I think, So
I'm trying so hard not to say absolutely right now. But,
it's stunning. I know Bo Burnham has never watched this show, but it is kind of stunning that he hasn't. When you think of how accurate this is.
Next we have Turning 30.
So this is a great example of, like, I alluded to it earlier a little bit, but like Bo Burnham, I mean, literally growing with his audience in this song 30, where like it's a similar song to what he would sing when he was young, but now it's the point is essentially getting older, and it's also where he was a young kid. Like everyone talked about how young he was. That was the whole thing. Like he wasn't accepted in comedy really. No one took him seriously because he was going to these clubs when he was 18. So they're like, this kid, he's a flash in the pan. He's from YouTube. He'll never make it. And now he's realizing like he's kind of the adult in the room in a lot of these circles. So I thought it was, I think it's very insightful.
I used to run for miles, I used to ride my bike, I used to wake up with a smile and go to bed at night with a dream. But now I'm turning 30.
No.
I used to be the young one, got used to meeting people who weren't used to meeting someone who was born in 1990, no way. Yeah, I was born in 1990. Now I'm turning 30. God damn it. I'm turning 30. I'm turning 30. When he was 27, my granddad fought in Vietnam. When I was 27, I built a birdhouse with my mom. Oh, fuck. Oh, how am I 30? I used to make fun of the boomers, in retrospect a bit too much. Now all these fucking zoomers are telling me that I'm out of touch. Oh yeah? Well, your fucking phones are poisoning your minds, okay? So when you develop a dissociative mental disorder in your late 20s, don't come crawling back to me.
So it is like you're watching a guy, and that's what a lot of the special is, where you're watching a guy who's only 30 years old, but has had all this success over 14, 15 years, whatever it's been. And he's like just reflecting on that. And it's actually very interesting to watch to me. And I do think he has had an incredibly unique experience, but is also able to relate it to people who have just, worked regular jobs or lived like in the public eye a meaningless life. You're still able to connect with it.
Next we have Don't Want to Know.
I mean, this to me, this is a little insight into what I think. This is my thought process every time we post anything, literally even a tweet. This is how my mind works. I think it's like such a perfect song. And this is actually like, it's one of the shorter songs on the, most of these we haven't played all of. This we're playing literally all of. So it's one of the shorter ones. But
go easy on us, YouTube.
It's very this represents what connects Bo Burnham to so many people with depression and anxiety. Like, you know, I probably don't relate to a lot of the people that you'll see on TikTok talking about Bo Burnham necessarily, but we are connected by one thing, and I think it's probably this thought process.
How are you feeling? Do you like the show? Are you tired of it? Never mind, I don't want to know. Are you finding it boring? Too fast, too slow? I'm asking, but don't answer, cause I don't want to know. Do I have your attention? Yes or no? I bet I guess the answer, but I don't want to know. Am I on in the background? Are you on your phone? I'd ask you what you're watching, but I don't want to know. Is there anyone out there? Or am I all alone? It wouldn't make a difference, still I don't want to know. I thought it'd be over by now, but I got a while to go. I'd give away the ending, but you don't want to know.
So to me, that's like, it kind of captures anxiety really well. Like, that's what you go through, is you ask people constantly what they think of you. And like, hey, was this good? And the second they say the slightest, you take offense. You're like, oh my God, why would you say that? Like, you take offense to it. You're hurt by it.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, every time Mike says sound off in the comments, he shits himself right after.
I don't mean it. I want you to be really, like, overwhelmingly nice in a believable way, not a mocking way. You have to convince me that you like this.
Right.
But that is like that to me encapsulates, you know, he has a lot of songs like that speak to just human behavior in a way where I think there's a lot of people that are just like, oh, he gets me. You know what I mean? Like, it's a rare breed. And I think now probably my generation might have a lot more people like that. Like, a lot of people talk about anxiety and depression and going to therapy and stuff now, way more than they used to. Like, we didn't talk about it much with Woody Allen, but that was like a talking point on Dick Cavett, where Dick Cavett asked, like, so you've been in therapy, what's that like? And Woody's like, yeah, you know, I enjoy it, it helps me. They kind of look at him like as like a freak, and that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So we do have more people to relate to in that way, but I do think he does a great job of kind of narrowing down what gives people anxiety.
Next we have Welcome to the Internet.
So to me, your nominee for the single on the album was White Woman's Instagram. To me, it's Welcome to the Internet. Maybe just because I see it more, maybe it's just because it's my favorite song. But I think this is his masterpiece within the masterpiece. Like, I think Welcome to the Internet is a truly brilliant song, and the way he structures it, to me, is masterful.
Yeah, sound off in the comments which song is your favorite, but only if you agree with us,
guys,
and really mean it.
Sound off in the comments. Would you mind? Yeah, let's hear Welcome to the Internet.
Welcome to the internet. Have a look around. Anything that brain of yours can think of can be found. We've got mountains of content, some better, some worse. If none of it's of interest to you, you'd be the first. Welcome to the internet. Come and take a seat. Would you like to see the news or any famous women's feet? There's no need to panic. This isn't a test. Just nod or shake your head and we'll do the rest. Welcome to the internet. What would you prefer? Would you like to fight for civil rights or tweet a racial slur? Be happy, be horny, be bursting with rage. We got a million different ways to engage. Welcome to the internet. Put your cares aside. Here's a tip for straining pasta. Here's a 9-year-old who died. We got movies and doctors and fantasy sports and a bunch of colored pencil drawings of all the different characters in Harry Potter fucking each other. Welcome to the internet. internet. Hold on to your socks, cause a random guy just kindly sent you photos of his cock. They are grainy and off-putting, he just sent you more. Don't act surprised, you know you like it, you whore. See a man beheaded, get offended, see a shrink. Show us pictures of your children, tell us every thought you think. Start a rumor, buy a broomer, send a death threat to a boomer, or DM a girl and groomer, do a zoomer, find a tumor in your. Here's a healthy breakfast option, you should kill your mom. Here's why women never fuck you, here's how you can build a bomb. Which Power Ranger are you? Take this quirky quiz. Obama sent the immigrants to vaccinate your kids.
So, I think it's brilliant. And then the second half of the song, to Craig's point earlier, kind of a departure from the tone, is much more somber. And I think structurally, he clearly did that on purpose, where throughout the special, it gets darker and darker as his mental health declined through this process, I think. Oh, that, by the way, dummy for not mentioning this earlier. And I should have mentioned it particularly when it was Bo Burnham and Bo Burnham, the podcast.
Blindmike.net, right?
Blindmike.net, absolutely, go there. Because the only place you get editing that good as blindmike.net is this special that he entirely did himself. I don't know how I didn't mention it at the beginning, but that's one of the other masterful things about this is he did everything on his own. I'm sure there are some outside sources if you go and look at the credits, but essentially this is all a Bo Burnham product, directed and edited and all that, written by Bo Burnham.
I believe I mentioned it briefly.
Oh, okay, good. Because that's the incredible thing about it is that he did this all on his own. And the structure of it, like to me, I think is really brilliantly done as well. Where as this goes along and he's making this return to comedy, his mental health is clearly declining, and it becomes a darker and darker piece of content as you get further into it.
I also enjoy with that last song.
Yeah.
Without saying it, just the music itself, he's telling you, welcome to the internet. It's a fucking circus.
Oh, it's perfectly done. Like the tone of it is perfectly done. And he has so many good references in it. Like it would be very difficult to encapsulate exactly what the internet is to an alien or something, you know?
Yeah, show him that.
And
song.
I believe he managed to do it, where it's like, that's such a beautiful commentary on just all the horse shit that you can find just by opening your phone.
Yeah, here's a quirky quiz or a dead 9-year-old.
Yeah. Here's a tip for straining pasta. Here's a 9-year-old who died. On its own is probably the best description of the internet.
Yes.
It's a great description of Twitter, just solely, where
Right.
it's like, or Facebook, whatever, where you can just scroll through and see two completely opposite mood changers.
Oh yeah. Next we have a funny feeling.
Okay, you want to talk Darkness. This is probably the best, one of the better examples on the album. And this is where it gets a little more political. To me, I think he has a lot of Carlin, but we'll also get to one valid criticism I heard of some of the stuff that you'll hear in this song.
Surgeon General's pop-up shop, Robert Iger's face. Discount Etsy agitprop, Bugle's take on race. Female Colonel Sanders, easy answer, Civil War. The whole world at your fingertips, the ocean at your door. The live-action Lion King, the Pepsi halftime show. 20,000 years of this, 7 more to go. Carpool karaoke, Steve Aoki, Logan Paul. A gift shop at the gun range, a mass shooting at the mall. There it is again, that funny feeling, that funny feeling.
I think that's just a great song in general, but basically what he's doing, this is similar to Welcome to the Internet. He's kind of outlining just the horse shit that America is, and the world to an extent, but specifically like our country, like just the conglomeration of horse shit that we've become. And I think it's very insightful commentary and interesting. One thing I don't love about the song is it starts with him saying, I don't play the guitar very well or sing, so apologies. And it's like, but you've made a career off your voice, so let's not, don't bullshit a bullshitter here. But the one valid criticism I've heard of this special, and I think it particularly zeroes in on songs like that, was I was listening to Tim Dillon. I actually was searching for the actual clip and couldn't find it. If anyone knows where it is, send it to me, and maybe we'll talk about it in another form someday.
But only send it if you actually found it.
Yes, yeah. Don't hoodwink me, guys. Sound off in the comments if you know who Tim Dillon is. Bo Burnham's a YouTube guy. He understands the algorithm. We got to use that today.
Make this video the one with the most comments we've ever had.
Yes, please. So Tim Dillon said, Bo Burnham is railing against corporations in this, corporations and like billionaires and things like that. Like that is a political issue. He takes basically a firm stance on in this, whether he says it or not. You can tell his opinion. And Tim Dillon's point was, where was this special broadcast?
Right.
If you go look at Netflix, their what their worth is, I think you might say that is a large corporation, and they pay Bo Burnham a great deal of money for this. And Bo Burnham makes, to his credit, he makes jokes about that. Like I think in the first song we played, where he's like, "Should I give away my money?" No, where he kind of acknowledges like, I'm part of the problem, I guess. But Tim Dillon's point was basically, and it reminds me of a Jay Leno quote about David Letterman. I don't know if we said this when we were talking Leno versus Letterman, but Leno said, "Hey, like Dave can be the cool guy all he wants, and you guys can paint me as the corporate shill that's sold out. But Dave takes his money from CBS,
right?
I don't know who owned them at the time, Viacom or whoever it was, NBC even before that." Like Dave takes his money from a corporation, so you can act cool and be the fuck management, screw corporate guy all you want, but where are you getting your paychecks? Like you are, like a part of the problem. If you feel that strongly about it, so that I do think is a fair point. But again, I feel that Bo in this special, like even though he has his stances, to me, the political stuff, and I've probably been guilty of saying this in the past. I'm sure I have, where I'm like, hey, you're just alienating, half the population by going on these political rants. And if I've said that in the past, I'm wrong, and I think people who say that are wrong. But when I've said it, it's about guys like Stephen Colbert, where it's like all you're doing, there's no art to it. All you're doing is wagging your finger. And that's where I compare Bo Burnham to George Carlin, is he's very clear in what he believes, but he's doing it in a way that's palatable to everybody. And to me, that's the only way you get your message across to the other side. Like if you're just a guy who goes on, I won't name any names, but if you're just a guy that gets on a mic and says that Donald Trump poops his pants, then you might be a little too biased. You're not going to you're lying to yourself if you think you're convincing anybody.
And that's a fact.
And that's an absolute fact. So, but guys like Bo Burnham and George Carlin are just as steadfast in their beliefs, but they do it in a way that you can tolerate, you can sit through and get some entertainment value, even if you're not going to change your mind,
Yeah. Next we have All Eyes on Me.
So this is part of that song where he actually explains, and I'm guessing the first time I watched this is the first time I learned about this. This is where he explains why he's been away for 5 years.
You want to hear a funny story? So, 5 years ago, I quit performing live comedy because I was beginning to have severe panic attacks while on stage, which is not a great place to have them. So I quit. And I didn't perform for 5 years, and I spent that time trying to improve myself mentally. And you know what? I did. I got better. I got so much better, in fact, that in January of 2020, I thought, you know what? I should start performing again. I've been hiding from the world, and I need to re-enter. And then, the funniest thing happened. Are you feeling nervous? Are you having fun? It's almost over, it's just begun. Don't overthink this, look in my eye. Don't be scared, don't be shy. Come on in, the water's fine. You say the ocean's rising like I give a shit. You say the whole world's ending, honey, it already did. You're not gonna slow it, heaven knows you tried. Got it good, now get inside.
And again, to me, at the end there, you hear where I never feel, even though his political beliefs are very clear, like he literally thinks global warming is going to cause the world to end in 7 years. You know, like
Right.
he's that extreme in some of his beliefs. But to me, it's never preaching. Like what that is saying, like I'm not going to do anything about it. Like we're fucked. You know.
Right.
So to me, that's not a tone of preaching. It's not Hannah Gadsby screaming at the audience, "Listen to me." You know.
Right.
So that's what I always find annoying. So I'm sure I'm being hypocritical in things I've said in the past about like political comedy, or maybe I'm not. Vet me. Sound off in the comments. Am I being hypocritical, gang? What do you say?
Write in the comments and be brutally honest.
But to me, it's the preaching element that crept its way into comedy over the last decade or so, where it's like you're making political points with no jokes. To me, even the parts where there aren't necessarily jokes, there's art to what Bo Burnham is doing. And that's kind of part of the brilliance of using music, I think, is that you're able to get away with something that would otherwise maybe be seen as preachy. Because it is artistic and it's giving people entertainment. But just getting on a stage and saying, like, hey, like, you know, racism is wrong. It's like, yeah, well, who is that for? Everyone knows that. No
Right.
shit. Even racists would agree with that sentence. You're not appealing to anyone, you know?
Right.
So like, that's why, to me, he's able to get away with even some of his more extreme points, because I think there's such an art to it. And yeah, like I said, it connects with me because, you know, you guys may not know it to look at me, but I was a very angsty young man. There's a lot of pain behind these non-working eyes, you know? So yeah, is the next one our last song?
Yep.
Okay, so I think we can end with that, right? Or will we be fucked if we play the whole thing?
I guess we'll find out.
All right, yeah, we'll find out if they really screw us, lops them off, I guess. But we'll end with that. So I just want to say before we get out of here, blindmike.net is the place to be, where you could find every single one of our links for the most part, except TikTok and a couple of the Instagrams, I think. But
My Twitter's there. Important.
Craig's Twitter's there, and that's all that really matters. So go to
Right.
blindmike.net. Support the show everywhere you get podcasts, including YouTube. Subscribe. Tap the notification bell. All the stuff that helps boost us in the algorithm.
You know what to do? Sound off in the comments how I did in this episode, and only be very nice.
Guys, sound off how Craig did. Sound off whether or not you follow him on Twitter. And sound off if you... What was the other thing I was going to say? I don't know. If you go to blindmike.net, sound off in the comments, will you? Oh, yeah, sound off if you made it this far.
Yeah.
Sound off if you made it to the end of the episode.
Do that.
Or even if you didn't. But then how would you be hearing this?
Well, no, you're lying.
Yeah, go to blindmike.net. That's where all our links are. Support the show for free or become a patron. We appreciate it. Both equally, but the patron's a little more. So become a member. You get bonus content and early access. And get us to 1,000, for God's sake. We're almost there. I've been saying that for a while, but we're ticking there ever so slowly. So get us to 1,000 on Patreon, or if it's easier, become a YouTube member. And We will talk to you guys. Well, let me explain the song. This is probably, again, in tone. Well, I won't say it's darker in tone than any of the others, but it matches up with That Funny Feeling and All Eyes on Me and stuff. But again, much like That Funny Feeling, I think this is just a genuinely good song. Like, you could take it out of a comedy special and just listen to it for enjoyment. Also, kudos to me. I know pretty much every word to every song we've played, and it took a lot for me to not sing along on mic. So
It was good.
so pat on the back for myself. But hope you guys enjoyed this. And let me know. You sound off in the comments again if you think this is a good way to do an episode, because I was kind of nervous about it. I didn't know if it would make sense because it's different than the other comedy specials we've done. So you guys let me know, and we will talk to you next time on Why Are You Laughing?
So long, goodbye. I'll see you when I see you. You can pick the street, I'll meet you on the other side. So long, goodbye. Do I really have to finish? Do returns always diminish? Did I say that right? Does anybody want to joke when no one's laughing in the background? So this is how it ends. I promise to never go outside again. So long, bye. I'm slowly losing power. Has it only been an hour? No, that can't be right. So long, goodbye. Hey, here's a fun idea. How about I sit on the couch and I watch you next time? I wanna hear you tell a joke when no one's laughing in the background. So this is how it ends. I promise to never go outside again. Am I going crazy? Would I even know? Am I right back where I started 14 years ago? Wanna guess the ending, if it ever does? I swear to God that all I've ever wanted was a little bit of everything, all of the time. A bit of everything, all of the time. Apathy's a tragedy and boredom is a crime. I'm finished playing and I'm staying inside. If I wake up in a house that's full of smoke, I'll panic. So call me up and tell me a joke. When I'm fully irrelevant and totally broken, damn it. Call me up and tell me a joke. Oh shit. You're really joking at a time like this.
Close inside again, went out to look for a reason to hide again. Buddy, you found it. Now come out with your hands up, we've got you surrounded.
zip it up and zip it out.